And it's a line drive to
Key lime margarita?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Just watch.
Whoa.
Hi.
Go for it.
Thanks.
What about me?
Got you covered. Hey!
Whoa.
Hey!
Hey.
Hey.
Lefty O'Doul's drink mixes at these fine stores.
What are you doing? I'm getting the girl back.
With a live audience at the Gold Dust Lounge at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. It's the Will and Willie Show, brought to you by Lefty O'Doul's Drink Mixes, your bartender in a bottle. I'm Paul Wells.
I'm Will Durst. And I'm Willie the Brown.
And our guest,
Pete McCloskey.
former
Pete McCloskey.
congressman from San Mateo in Silicon Valley.
And the founder of Earth Day.
In this neighborhood where it first became the idea, why don't you tell us about how that came about?
You got to tell. Earth Day started about a mile from here.
Oh, no kidding.
A guy named Gaylord Nelson, Democratic senator from Icebox, Wisconsin.
Nah, just regular Wisconsin.
Yeah, but he
I like that.
he comes out to San Jose State for 4 years. He falls in love with the Sierra, the redwoods, the beauty of this state. And in Christmas, 1969, and about a mile from here, he's up about the 18th floor with a guy having a martini. And after 2 martinis, they're looking at the sunset over the Golden Gate. And one of them says, you know, this California, San Francisco, is such a great place. We had to have an Earth Day to celebrate it. And the other guy says, yeah, they have another martini. He says, it ought to be bipartisan. Anybody know a Republican? They didn't know any Republicans that were environmental. And it ought to be bicameral, so we got to get a Republican from the House. Well, they knew there were no Republicans in the House. So I get invited to be the co-chair of Earth Day by Gaylord Nelson. And Earth Day ended up April 22nd. We picked Arbor Day because
71, right?
yeah, well, no, Arbor Day started in 1874 by a guy in Nebraska, school teacher, said every kid ought to plant a tree on
April
Arbor Day,
22nd,
because
yeah.
there was no trees in Nebraska. Well, in any event, Earth Day comes and goes. And it's a bunch of kids sitting around on grassy hillsides, and they're petting their dogs, and the girls are wearing flowers in their hair. And about 4 days later, I get a call from a friend that looked after my wife when I went to Korea, my law school debate partner, John Ehrlichman. Ehrlichman's laughing as hard as you've ever heard him laugh. And he flew 26 missions over Europe in a nose cone of a B-29. He was not a coward by any way. He's laughing like hell. He says, Pete, he says, you won't believe this. I got to give the FBI report to Nixon of what happened on Earth Day. Because Nixon was so paranoid. This was 1970. The campuses were erupting.
Anti-war.
Stanford burned down the ROTC building. They tear gassed the kids in Berkeley.
Madison, the math building.
So all over America, there are FBI guys looking through field glasses at these kids. And he read me a couple of paragraphs in the report. Says, you know, Mr. President, it wasn't anti-war at all. These kids were sitting around petting their dogs. The girls had flowers in their hair. They maybe drank a little beer. They're listening to kids talk about Earth Day and oceans and whales. He says maybe they make a little love once in a while out in the bushes, but it was perfectly benign. And Ehrlichman's got to give this to Nixon. He knows Nixon's so paranoid he's going to go crazy. But the kids on Earth Day then went out and labeled 12 of my colleagues in the House the Dirty Dozen and vowed their defeat. And everybody laughed like hell and said, no, they're just a bunch of kids. 6 weeks pass, Democratic primary. 2 senior Democrats get beaten in their primary because all the kids all over the country descend on Denver and Baltimore, where there's about a 15% vote turnout in the Democratic primary. They beat 2 senior Democrats. They took out 5 Republicans of the 10.
This was 70?
This in 1970.
So it's a midterm.
Yeah, but January 71, Congress convenes, and now everybody was environmental. They hadn't taken out nobody. Well, look what happened. Clean air, clean water, endangered species, marine mammals protection, estuarine act, coastal zone, everything.
Well, that was you too, wasn't it? Aren't you the author of the Endangered Species Act?
Well, kind of co-author.
With who?
But get Ehrlichman. Nixon was no environmentalist, but Ehrlichman convinces him it's good politics. Let's have an environmental protection agency. So 1970 to 74, the golden age, all because Not Congress, not the president.
The kids.
The kids.
And it wasn't a communist plot, as some people seem to believe today, that environmentalism has something to do with left or right politics. To me, it's just good
there-
management of the resource that we call Earth.
If we don't elect Democrats this fall, we're going to have all of the Earth Day environment advances hurt, and hurt badly. They'll be, those Tea Party guys will want to eviscerate all of those laws.
There's Pete McCloskey is our guest on the Will and Willie Show today, and there is on page A4 today, because we recorded this on Earth Day, April 22nd, an ad honoring Pete McCloskey, one of the nation's first environmental lawyers from the law firm, with your friend Mr. Kachet there.
Kachet, Petrie, and McCarthy, it's a
Kachet.
hell of a law firm.
Yeah.
They have never seen an injustice they won't attack. Most of injustices today are on Wall Street.
Right. Pete is a Stanford graduate and recipient of the Navy Cross, the Silver Star, 2 Purple Hearts while a U.S. Marine officer in Korea. And it mentions the...
Hey, no,
Yes.
listen, don't ever get the idea that Marines are heroic. What Marines are, they're scared to have other Marines see they're scared stiff. I was scared stiff all the time. I didn't want him behind me to see that.
Yeah.
I was more scared of Willie. Remember when Willie was Speaker? He was the most powerful man in America. Republicans, when I was young, Republicans would meet in secret rooms and talk about Willie the way the Tea Party talks about Obama. He's a socialist, he's a Muslim, he was born in Libya, he's going to destroy the country. Have you ever heard?
Well, he was born in Texas, which is a lot like Libya.
That's Libya.
Yeah.
A version of
The
Libya.
Californians.
But Pete, you're being incredibly modest in terms of how we ended up with all those significant measures that currently protects the environment that actually occurred in the time period when Nixon was the president.
Willie, you do give me too much credit. Let me tell you what a bad politician I was. I ran for the Senate in 1982. When I was the first Republican, there were 3 of us came out for gay rights. So I was the lion of the gay community in this city, 1982. Until my press secretary takes me to a garage or a gymnasium here in San Francisco. There's 3,000 gays and lesbians hanging off the rafters. I get a standing ovation when I walk in. The first question, well, Congressman, if we elect you to the Senate, will you vote for money to promote the gay and lesbian lifestyle? Unlike Willie, I say I wouldn't vote for money to promote the heterosexual lifestyle. Whereupon I get booed out of the building. I had to run out of the building. They were booing so hard. I blew the gay vote.
What did you say?
So to speak. So to speak. So to speak.
Now, there's a funny story about, I helped make someone a billionaire building a casino, and all I got was this lousy briefcase. You
Yeah.
should have a T-shirt.
Well, this guy, this Marine who had been in my rifle company in Korea is wounded 4 times in 4 weeks, but he becomes Mr. Democrat in New Jersey. Atlantic City is on the rocks. I mean, you could buy a house for $100.
He's talking
So-
about Pat. He's talking about Patrick.
So he says, Patty
that
McGann.
Yeah. Is
that
Patty
Detroit?
McGann is a
no,
smart...
no, in New Jersey.
Lyndon Johnson's a man in New Jersey. So he hires Willie to go back to New Jersey to argue with the 30% of New Jersey that's black, and he gets me to go back to argue for the 20% that are Republicans in New Jersey, and by God, it passes. And the day
To allow for gay men in the state of New Jersey.
Patty
You
McGann.
you lobbied the black community?
The two of
Yeah,
us.
we are responsible.
Are you
for
serious?
illegal
Absolutely,
gambling in New Jersey.
absolutely.
You're responsible for Atlantic City?
Yeah.
We are responsible for Atlantic City.
But
Oh, I got
For the
Nucky
Trump
Johnson
casino
right
and the
next
whole
to me.
mess.
you won't find him smiling very long about this, because
You
the next day we found the guy we work for, Patty McGann, had an option on all of, what's that?
The
Broad
boardwalk.
Street? Boardwalk.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a cut.
That's right.
They didn't get
all
park
we got was
place.
airfare.
Willie gives me a briefcase.
They didn't even get free
Patty
parking.
McGann becomes Donald Trump's lawyer, and he's a multimillionaire.
And we're still working.
There's no justice.
Well, why couldn't you do it to Alcatraz? Weren't we going to turn Alcatraz into a casino?
No, I tried to turn Treasure Island into, you recall, when
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
running for mayor, I wanted to have, Treasure Island, a game preserve. And, the news organizations went after me on the basis that, I was creating crime and all that kind of crap.
The most powerful man in America. I'm proud to sit next to him.
You?
He stayed honest all these years, we think.
Because he doesn't believe in email. Nothing in print.
He doesn't own Boardwalk.
What's that you say, Mr. Mayor? It's the E for evidence. That's what email is.
That's all it can be, period. But we really had a ball. When we were in New Jersey doing the effort to get Atlantic City to become competitive with Vegas, you got to understand what a challenge that was.
What year was that?
Oh, that was about 1973?
70?
You
oh,
were
really?
in your prime.
Yeah, I was in my prime. But we had a ball. We really did. It was an interesting environment. Our friend Sandy Weiner was the guy who was in charge of all of that. The late Sandy Weiner was in charge of all that, and we were back there. But we didn't have any real sense. We knew that the economy of New Jersey needed something. Nobody wanted to invest anything in the state of New Jersey. And they were right.
It
To be reluctant.
It was tough on Christians, though, because all the churches had kind of gone bankrupt, and after it became legal, they all became bars. And you could go into a church, and the organs were all behind you, and a long bar guy surfing Bloody Marys.
Well, in America, Sundays turned over to football. So, yeah, on any given Sunday.
But Pete McCloskey, for the benefit of those of you out there that don't know, was one of the pioneer persons in the world of politics in terms of addressing the issues in a very dramatic way. He talked about his experience when he was running for the U.S. Senate nomination in California. You didn't just get rejected by the gays, right?
No, I got beat by Pete Wilson. He promised if he were elected, he would annex the West Bank to Israel. That killed me in Southern California. I couldn't, no way I could beat that.
But you also quit being a congressman
You walked
to
away,
run for the
right.
Senate. Yeah. And you could still be there.
He could still be speaker if he hadn't.
Term limits.
Yes, term limits. We owe term limits in California, and every place around the world. They now say that term limits have made us half the legislature that it was under your leadership. We had guys like John Knox and Bill
Bagley.
Big Bagley. We had Meyer.
Oh, we had so
Wonderful.
many talented people.
You had great Democrats, great Republicans.
Career.
Talking to
politicians.
each other, courteous to each other, compromising with each other. It's a great legislature.
People
But
who knew the job because they were on it long enough to learn it.
it took me 10 years to become an effective congressman. You can't
go.
stay there more than 8 now. What is it, 6 in the Assembly and 8 in the Senate?
12 total.
You can't learn enough to be
In the state of
effective.
California.
Yeah.
It's too bad. It's a sad thing.
Took you a shorter period of time. It took me 16 years. I remember though when I became speaker, some kid at some school raised his hand, and I've only been speaker like 4 years. And I intended to be speaker forever. And so
Yeah.
he said, Mr. Speaker, who do you think will replace you? I said, if he's lucky, he'll be conceived tonight.
Yeah. You remember Emperor Norton? You remember the Conical used to run Emperor Norton contests where you won a
Yeah.
prize? You were going to be Emperor Norton.
Eventually.
Well, you beat Jess's record, didn't you?
Oh, I beat everybody's record. I doubled everybody's record. I was a holder of that job for 14 and a half years, almost 15 years, and Unruh was 7 years. So, and no one will ever match it because nobody can stay
No,
there
you can't stay
that
there.
long. So that's the
Perez
end
is
of-
out, right?
And now
Perez
he's
is
80.
out.
He's 80 and he's wise. And when I was 80, I got wise and became a Democrat.
Yeah. You churned into a Democrat in the year 2007. What prompted that?
He was always a Democrat. He may have been registered.
Definitely left of what is the Republican Party now. We're at the Willie Willie Show at the Gold Dust Lounge at Fisherman's Wharf. And we're going to take a short break here and have more with Pete McCloskey. Question and answer. I think Rich Lieberman is still here.
With this
And,
live
We
audience.
have a microphone here with our live studio audience, brought to you by Lefty O'Doul's Drink Mixes. My Source TV shooting it. Happy birthday to Laura Rose. And also, Mike is behind us, Michael Butler, and Yasmin, and Michael Palmer, our whole crew, and Nick Bovis. Everybody here at the Gold Dust Lounge. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.